How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks. We focus on one thing: always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about MULN and as well as for ChargePoint. We see MULN made a strong move today inside of the market, moving up to 74 cents. If you remember what I said in my previous video, the bulls want to see a break above 68 cents. And you know what? I don't have to explain it even further. A lot of people inside of the Discord made money off this play. I told you guys that we also had a gap that needed to be filled at 62. We came down to 60, and of course we had the strong spike. And we also had ChargePoint that ended up releasing earnings, and they did come out beating estimates. We'll talk about that further in the video, but I want to remind you, if you're new to this channel, I just want to let you know that we have timestamps down below inside the description. We're going to be taking a look at the charts, we're going to be taking a look at the short interest, and then I'll be giving you guys my final thoughts afterwards. So let's get into those videos right now. So we're going to take a look at the chart from MULN. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at 66 cents, being up 4.96%. On the low, it tested 63 cents, and then on the high, testing 74 cents. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 125.13 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 77.924 million shares. So we had well above the average in regards to volume, and we saw some strength in the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, we got exactly what the bulls were looking for. I was saying you want to see some strength above that 9 EMA at 68 cents, and we end up seeing a high at 74 cents. So this has been an area of resistance in the past, but if it's able to make a move, especially going into tomorrow to 76, it can get very interesting because that's where we have the 21-day EMA. Do keep in mind, MULN is still trading below all of our major moving averages, which is the 50 EMA, the 21 EMA, and as well as the 9 EMA, but we can clearly see that we have some strong support ever since we came down to 60 cents. So if we do decide to pull back, you want to see a higher low. We saw a low at 63 cents, so if we can have a low around 64 or even 65, this is a very good sign. If it ends up breaking through that low of 63 cents, that's where we want to see some strength at 60. Keep in mind, it wasn't too long ago that we filled in the gap at 62. So we can clearly see that the bulls are interested in MULN in these particular areas. But also, I want you guys to make sure you add to your notes, we do have the 52-week low that is right around 52 cents. So if we see a turnaround inside of these markets in regards to more selling pressure, that's an area you want to continue to watch. But for the most part, MULN is looking really good. Like I said, we ended up forming a higher low and as well as a higher high. Let's see if this momentum continue, especially as we get closer to the end of the week. So we're going to take a look at the recent short interest information from MULN. So the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 58.40%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 36.18 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 1.8 million, updated 15 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 18.40%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 29th, it is at 57.38, and then for the close of the 30th being at 58.40. So a little bit of an increase right there. And then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 15.24%, MULN does continue to have short squeeze potential. Let's take a look at ChargePoint. So we ended up closing at $16.27, being up 12.28%. On the low, it tested $15.02, and then on the high, testing $16.94. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 27.867 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 9.774 million shares. So we had well above the average in regards to volume, and we saw some strength in the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, you can clearly see that ChargePoint had quite the day. They ended up releasing their earnings. We'll talk about that more afterwards. But as far as for the price action, we saw a low at $15. We know this is an area of support, and it's right near where we have our 50 EMA, and it ended up seeing a high right at 16.94. So you can clearly see it was trying to make that move going to 17, but it ended up seeing some resistance. You could also see the previous line that we drew out being at 16.51. So knowing that it broke through 16.51 gives it an interesting setup going into tomorrow and as well as going into Friday, because if ChargePoint can have a higher low, remember on the previous day we had a low here, looks like around 14.28, and then for today we have 15. So going into tomorrow, if we could find support maybe right above the 21 EMA at 15.52, if we decide to pull back that far, it still looks good. But I would really want to see ChargePoint being able to have support holding up at 16 bucks, because if it could hold 16 bucks, then there's no doubt in my mind we should be able to make a move to break above $17 in my personal opinion. Now, if we decide to show some weakness or we decide to sell off now, then of course you want to see this higher low pattern being broken. So you want to see it break below 15 bucks. But in my personal opinion, if we have a turnaround in these markets, whether it comes on Thursday or Friday, momentum will come into ChargePoint and it can move up even further. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for ChargePoint. Scrolling down on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So we're going to take a look at the recent filings for the 29th. So we have Bridge Builder Large Cap Growth Fund that purchased 16,365 shares. We also see Bridge Builder again that purchased 18,799 shares. We see Bank of New York Mellon with a closed position. We have AI Powered Equity ETF that purchased 41,238 shares. So now when we take a look at the short interest, the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 66.49%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 3.61 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 200,000, updated 20 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 2.53%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 29th, it is at 66.90, and then for the close of the 30th being at 66.49. So pretty consistent. And then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 15.43%, ChargePoint does continue to have short squeeze potential. So for my final thoughts for ChargePoint and as well as for MULN, let's start off with MULN. So MULN ended up having a strong run today inside of the market, but that pullback was not surprising whatsoever. We have a lot of sellers in that 70-cent range. So going into tomorrow, we want to see that momentum continue. We want to see MULN going back to testing 70 cents. Can it pull it off? We're going to have to wait and see. We do have 2 more days before this week is over, and then we have the long weekend. So that's why you want to watch MULN very closely. If it decides to pull back, just know if it gets down to around 63 to 62, we could have some bulls wanting to step in. And if it comes down to 60, that's where we need that buying pressure to come back. But one thing that I'm seeing clearly from the chart, even though we are trading below all of our major moving averages, there are a lot of buyers. We had a high volume. We want that continuation, and plus it does have short squeeze potential. And as far as for ChargePoint, let's talk about why the shares are up. It's in regards to earnings. I found an article we can go over very quickly. So ChargePoint shares rise after second quarter sales nearly double. Shares of ChargePoint Holdings Inc. were up 12% to $16.23 in early trading after the company said its second quarter revenue nearly doubled. The electric charging company said after the bell on Tuesday that revenue rose 93% to $108.3 million for the 3 months ended July 31st, above the upper range of ChargePoint's own guidance. Analysts surveyed by FactSet had expected $103.2 million, so again beating estimates. Network charging revenue doubled to $84.1 million, while subscription rose to $20.2 million from $12.1 million last year. The company posted a net loss of $92.7 million compared with the loss of $84.9 million in the year earlier period. So these are definitely some good numbers to get from a growth stock like ChargePoint. We also do know in regards to earnings, this is a company that loses money. So seeing that they actually increased their losses is not surprising because they are focusing on growth. But the fact that we're seeing that, revenue is growing and as well as subscriptions, this bodes well for their future. So for anyone who's vested in this play, or maybe you might be trading it,
pay attention to the levels that I spoke about. As far as for a further run up in the near term, it could definitely happen. And I want to see ChargePoint gaining some momentum above $17. I don't think that's too much to ask. But if we're unable to do that, but if we can form another higher low, that is a really good look. But I would keep a very close eye overall in general. We still have 2 more days before this week is over. So ChargePoint can definitely continue its momentum if we see strength inside of the market. We also have to take into consideration it does have short squeeze potential, and knowing that the market has been selling off for like 4 days straight, going into Thursday or whether it might be on Friday, I do see a rally that is coming. And if we don't get it, then I see it for the coming week after the long weekend. You guys can take that information and do what you want with it. Of course, this is not financial advice, but that's just my thought process considering how the conditions have been. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be seeing you guys in September.